Mike Tomlin is out in Pittsburgh, but don't expect that to change the Giants' course for their next head coach. Locked on Giants starts right now.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, now the number one sports podcast network in America. My name is Patricia Traina, credential member of the New York Giants media for Locked On, as well as for New York Giants on SI, which is where you can find all my written work. And as always, welcome to our Everydayer Club members, our Blue Crew community members, our newcomers, and everybody in between. Thank you so much for spending part of your day with us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. And on today's show, we're talking head coach. What else? That's the only topic really we're talking about these next few days, right? Mike Tomlin is out in Pittsburgh, and right away people are like, oh, the Giants got to go and they've got to get him. Well, folks, I hate to burst the bubble, but it's not going to happen. And I'll talk about why in the first segment. Then in segment number 2, John Harbaugh, baby, still the one. We'll talk about the latest regarding John Harbaugh, some stuff that developed over the weekend into the early part of the week. So I'll get you all caught up on that. And then finally in segment 3, there's some myths out there about what John Harbaugh wants and what he doesn't want. We'll go over them and I'll try and clarify some of that stuff for you, what makes sense and what doesn't. So that's what we're going to cover on today's Locked On Giants podcast. Again, welcome to everybody. All right. So Mike Tomlin is out in Pittsburgh. That was the big news. It was interesting. I was just starting a meeting for New York Giants on SI. I was in a meeting when right in the middle of our Pittsburgh Steelers publisher talking, he's like, oh, gotta go. And suddenly I was like, what happened? What happened? And then the word broke about Mike Tomlin resigning his post in Pittsburgh. So right away, people, contacted me on social media, through email. Giants got to get Mike Tomlin. He's the best coach on the market. Mike Tomlin, a 19-year coaching veteran in Pittsburgh, 13 postseasons, 8 divisional titles, 1 Super Bowl. Very impressive record. But folks, I hate to burst your bubble. It's not going to happen. And here's why. Mike Tomlin, who unfortunately lost his last 6 playoff appearances, he's still under contract to the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? He signed a 3-year extension that keeps him under contract to the Steelers until 2027. Mike Tomlin, in all likelihood, is going to go to the broadcast booth, right? Maybe become a TV analyst for, some of these, whatever pregame shows. I think Fox is said to be in the lead, according to The Athletic. Mike Tomlin, if a team wants him, they basically, A, have to ask the Steelers for permission to interview him, and B, they're going to have to give something up if they really want to hire him. So I don't see the Giants getting into that mix. Now, would Tomlin, if he was totally a free agent, would he be in the mix? You better believe it. He absolutely would. But considering that the Steelers will probably want compensation for Tomlin from a team who really wants to hire him, assuming, of course, Tomlin wants to continue coaching, I don't see it happening. All right. Now, to put this in comparison with another situation that was kind of recent, think back to when Sean Payton went to Denver. Denver actually traded assets to the New Orleans Saints, who held contractual rights to Sean Payton, to get him in the Mile High City. That's the type of situation we would be looking at for a team this year to go after Mike Tomlin. I believe after the 2027 season, he can go back to coaching. All right. Again, unless there is a provision in his contract that says it tolls or basically freezes in time if he cannot or does not fulfill his duties. So for those of you who were excited and thought, oh, wow, now we're going to add Tomlin to the mix. Mm-mm. Don't see it happening. The Giants aren't going to trade assets for him. And there was from what I understand, when the Giants were putting together their list of potential head coaching candidates, the topic of Tomlin did come up. And it was decided that they're not in a position to give up huge assets to get this guy. As good as he is, he's a Hall of Fame head coach. Given all he's accomplished, he would be an excellent fit in New York, I think. Tomlin, in all likelihood, is going to TV. He's not going to coach next year. Now, might another team be willing to trade? Sure, why not? But it's not going to be the Giants, folks. At this point, it's Harbaugh or bust, I would say, based on the candidates that the Giants have brought in, based on the reports that are coming out, the interests. Now, the Giants, they did add Jesse Minter to their list. Jesse Minter being the defensive coordinator for the Chargers. That interview will be a virtual one because, again, teams cannot interview candidates who are currently employed or part of a postseason team that's still in contention until January 19th. So at this point, it'll be a courtesy call. But I think at this point also, it is very well known that John Harbaugh is the apple of the Giants' eye, that they're going to be all in to get him. And that's just the way it is, So what's the latest then with John Harbaugh and the Giants? There were some things that developed over the weekend. Haven't had a chance to really discuss it, but we'll do so right after this. Hey, Giant fans, let's be real. No one starts a business for the joy of calculating tax withholdings or managing payroll spreadsheets. That's where Gusto comes in to take the stress out of payroll benefits and HR so that you can focus on running your business and supporting your team. Gusto is the all-in-one remote-friendly payroll and HR platform that makes managing your team simple, transparent, and fast. Whether you're hiring, onboarding, or paying employees, Gusto helps you do it all from one place without the hassle or hidden fees. Unlimited payroll runs for one monthly price, which means no surprise charges at the end of the month. Gusto's automated tools like offer letters, onboarding materials, and direct deposits save hours every week. And knowing that you can reach certified HR experts anytime gives you real peace of mind. Try Gusto today at gusto.com/LockedOnNFL and get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. That's right, 3 months of free payroll at gusto.com/LockedOnNFL. One more time, that's Gusto, gusto.com/LockedOnNFL.
Hey, it's Matt Derry from the Locked On Lions podcast. The people I love depend on me. If I'm gone, the financial responsibilities don't disappear. I didn't want my family figuring things out during the hardest moment of their lives. That's why I knew only one place to go. I chose life insurance through my friends at Ethos. Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy, 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies are as low as $30 a month. I love the folks at Ethos. Protect your family with life insurance from Ethos now by going to ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. In as little as 10 minutes, you can get the free quote and up to $3 million in coverage at ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. That is ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Application times and rates may vary.
All right, Giant fans, welcome back to Locked On Giants. I'm your host, Patricia Traina. And before I get into this next segment, just a piece of tiny breaking news for what it's worth. The NFL just announced their nominees for the 2025 Pepsi Zero Sugar NFL Rookie of the Year. And none other than Jackson Dart of the Giants is on the list. It is a 6-member list. Jackson Dart, Trayvon Henderson, running back of the Patriots, Ashton Genty, running back of the Raiders, Teodoro McMillan, wide receiver of the Panthers, Carson Schweisinger, linebacker of the Browns, Tyler Shuck, quarterback of the Saints. So congratulations to Jackson Dart on his nomination. That just came in as I was recording the show. All right, let's get back to the topic number 2 here on the Locked On Giants podcast, and that is Harbaugh is still the one. It's Harbaugh or bust, I believe, for the New York Giants. All right, so let's get you caught up on some of the things that happened since we last talked to you on the show here. Over the weekend, Giants co-owner Chris Mara, yes, he is part of the ownership, so I can call him co-owner. He's also a personnel director, was down in Baltimore to have lunch and an informal meeting with John Harbaugh. All right. The Giants, basically what they have been doing is building up a relationship with John Harbaugh ahead of the formal meeting. So, you have that. And by the way, Ian O'Connor of The Athletic was the one who reported that meeting. So basically, the Giants have been doing their due diligence in getting to know John Harbaugh and letting him get to know them. You also have Joe Schoen having reportedly engaged in a ton of phone calls with John Harbaugh. Probably not, like every day or something like that, but just, check-ins, if you will. Now, that is all very important. Why? Because the more you go through that preliminary getting to know you stage, the more you get rid of, the jitters and the uncertainties. Do I like this guy? Can I work with this guy? What are these people all about? This is a very important and deliberate step that the Giants are taking with John Harbaugh. And will it give him the advantage in the hiring process? I think it will, right? Obviously, John Harbaugh is still going to be in demand by Atlanta, who I think is the biggest threat to the Giants. I think he will still be in demand by Miami, who wants him. And the wild card in this whole scenario could be the Packers. Now, the Packers, Adam Schefter reported that the Packers are going to look to extend head coach Matt LaFleur. All right. And if they do, then not a problem. If they don't, and the Packers move on from LaFleur, then it's a problem because Harbaugh is from that, Midwest area, could end up going back there if the Packers job becomes available. But right now, the Giants, I would say, are legitimately in the lead for the Harbaugh sweepstakes. All right. According to multiple reports, he's very interested in the Giants job, likes the film that he saw of Jackson Dart. And here's, the other thing I know somebody asked me about. Harbaugh signed a contract extension with the Ravens last offseason. And according to the research I was able to uncover, that contract pays him $17 million per year on average. Now, somebody asked me, all right, so if the Giants sign Harbaugh, how much of that do the Ravens pick up, of his new salary? And that depends, folks. Most contracts that coaches sign do have offsetting language. But in order for the Giants to get Harbaugh kind of, cheap, if you will, what would have to happen is they would have to sign Harbaugh and say, okay, John, for the duration of what's left on your Ravens contract, we're only going to pay you, say, $10 million. And then the Ravens would be on the hook for the remaining $7 million. All right. That's not going to happen. So there's no potential cost savings here for the Giants to do that. Not to mention, I can't see Harbaugh's agent allowing that. What will end up happening is Harbaugh will make a nice penny if he signs with the Giants. All right. He will be owed the $17 million from the Ravens and whatever else he gets from the Giants. So the Giants don't stand to get any, relief, if you will. And reminder, there is no salary cap for head coaches. You either open up your checkbook and throw the bank at them, or you pinch pennies. And if you pinch pennies, you're probably not going to get the guy you want. I don't think the Giants are going to pinch pennies here with John Harbaugh. I think they're going to pay him at least $17 million, if not more. All right. Make him one of the highest paid head coaches Right now, I think the highest paid head coaches in the NFL, Andy Reid of the Chiefs, and I think his brother Jim out in Los Angeles with the Chargers. Those are among the highest paid head coaches in the league. So Harbaugh, I fully expect will be amongst the top three in terms of what he gets. Now, what kind of contract might he get? Typically, the Giants do 5-year contracts with their head coaches. That's what Brian Dable got. That's what I believe before him Joe Judge got, and I know that's what Ben McAdoo got. So I have no reason to think that John Harbaugh's contract won't be anything less than 5 years. John Harbaugh also, just getting back to this whole Joe Schoen factor for a moment. I know people were saying that, oh, he's got to have his own man, or, oh, if it leads to Joe Schoen getting fired, great. That's not happening either. All right. I'm not saying that's a deal breaker for the Giants to land Harbaugh, but I don't see Joe Schoen getting fired either way. Could there be a restructuring of responsibilities? Possibly. I don't think that will happen either. And, I'll go into that a little bit more in the next segment. But for those of you who are sitting there hoping that the arrival of John Harbaugh, if it happens for the Giants, means the end of Joe Schoen, it's not going to happen. Tell you that right now. So, Harbaugh, still the one, still believed to be number one on the Giants wish list. That doesn't mean that the Giants are, not exploring other avenues just in case. Stefanski has been in. Mike McCarthy's interview is wrapped up as I record this. Like I said, Jesse Minter has now been requested. Chris Shula, Lou Anaromo is up at some point. There's still a lot of work that they're doing. And, here's the other thing, somebody said to me, well, if everybody knows the Giants want Harbaugh, why are these other coaches taking interviews with the Giants? And it's twofold. Number one, it shows professionalism, but more importantly, you never know. Some of these coaches, maybe they're interested in becoming a coordinator. For example, maybe Antonio Pierce, who I don't think is going to, is up there in the top 5 choices for head coach for the Giants. Maybe they say to Antonio Pierce when he came in, you know what, AP, we like you. We want you as part of the organization. We think you would be a better fit for defensive coordinator, and we're going to recommend you to whoever the next head coach is. So sometimes there's a little bit of that goes on, right? Just because a guy comes in as a head coach interview, depending on where he is in his contract, could mean that, the Giants want to look at him as a coordinator. So that's something to keep in mind, as you look at this list. Now, what about the coordinators who are already under contract to other teams? Well, you could still bring them in if you give them a promotion. And usually that promotion means slapping on associate head coach or assistant head coach to their title. That constitutes a promotion. So even though the Giants, I think, are up to 12 candidates that they have been linked to, some of them could be, like I said, for the purpose of coordinators. So that's something to keep an eye on once the head coach situation is settled. All right, coming up next, there was a report by ESPN Cleveland of some speculative demands that John Harbaugh has. I'll go over them and I'll separate fact from fiction for you right after this. Hey, Giant fans, new year, new systems. This is the time when a lot of us look at the messier parts of how we run our business and think there has to be a better way. And there is. Streamlining your communications is one of the quickest upgrades you can make. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Quo, the smarter way to run your business communications. Because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating in one place, you're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with customers. Your whole team can call and text from one shared business number, so nothing gets missed. Everyone sees the full conversation thread, which makes replies faster and more personal. It works right from your phone or computer, and you can even keep your existing number. And Quo's smart AI tools automatically log calls, summarize conversations, and highlight next steps so that details never slip through the cracks. It's no surprise that Quo is the number one rated business phone system on G2, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses, from solo operators to growing teams. Make this year the year where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free, plus get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/LockedOnNFL. That's Quo, QUO.com/LockedOnNFL. Hey, Giant fans, as the new year gets going, a lot of people are trying to simplify their routines, and dinner is a big one. Between busy workdays, cold winter nights, and packed schedules, having an easy, reliable dinner plan makes such a huge difference. And that's where Home Chef comes in. Home Chef takes the stress out of cooking by delivering fresh, pre-proportioned ingredients right to your door with easy to follow recipes that actually taste great. They're rated number one by users of other meal kits for quality, convenience, value, taste, and recipe ease. And it's easy to see why. Meals come ready to fit your schedule: 30-minute recipes, oven ready trays, or quick lunches. Over 30 weekly options, including family sized meals and different dietary choices. Recipes are simple but feel elevated, even restaurant quality, with dishes co created by chefs like Gordon Ramsay. Everything arrives pre-proportioned, so there's less prep, less mess, and no wasted food. It saves you time and money. And Home Chef customers save an average of $86 per month on groceries. And now, for a limited time, Home Chef is offering our listeners 50% off their first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Just go to homechef.com/lockedon. That's homechef.com/lockedon to get 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Must be an active subscriber to receive free dessert. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to Locked On Giants. I'm your host, Patricia Traina. We've got so much more coming up for you. I know I've been devoting a lot of these shows to the head coaching search, but that's the big story right now. But I still have more unit reviews to do for you, and just a whole bunch of other stuff. I still have player interviews I haven't gotten to, but I'm trying to keep you up to date on the news cycle. So I promise you I'll get to all of that great stuff. I promise. And just a quick note for my Everydayer Club members. Friday, we're going to do our lunch hour video call. You know the drill. You come, you kick back, enjoy, bring your favorite beverage, whether you're on your lunch break or whatever, and we'll talk about whatever you want. And you can become part of our Everydayer Club by simply going to LockedOnNYGiants.supercast.com to see all the benefits and also to join the club. You know, a lot of benefits we offer, so hope you'll check that out. All right, in this segment, there's some myths floating around about what John Harbaugh requires to come to a team. And I'm here to kind of make sense of them for you. Now, to give you the background, like I said earlier in the show, on ESPN Cleveland, Tony Grossi, a veteran NFL reporter, talked to a league source who speculated on what it's going to take for a team to land John Harbaugh. Some of the things that he speculated on, this source of Grossi's, might be true. Some of them don't make sense. All right, so let's try and separate fact from fiction here. Number one was the salary. I think the number floated was $17 million. Okay, we talked about that a little bit in the last segment. Yes, Harbaugh, he's gonna cost you a lot more than Brian Dable did. Brian Dable, per my research, what I was able to find, Brian Dable was paid $5 million a year. I'm telling you right now, they're not getting John Harbaugh for $5 million a year. It's going to have to be upwards of 17, possibly as high as 20. So the Giants, from what I understand, are willing to do what they have to bring him into the building. There was another report that said he requires $10 million for his assistant coaching staff. That's fiction. All right. Here's why I say it's fiction. Harbaugh in Baltimore, I believe, had something like 22 assistant coaches. There is no way you are going to cover that many coaches on 10 million. So the money's going to have to be a little bit more. But I think what was meant by that amount, which is, kind of sounds like a big amount. I think what the person was getting at is that money should not be an object for hiring the assistant coaches. And it shouldn't, right? When you skimp on the assistant coaching staff, it does show up. Great example for the Giants where that happened, Pat Shurmur. Pat Shurmur could not get the top flight assistants, and the team suffered, and Shurmur ultimately was out of a job. So if you're going to go all out and you're going to get this brand new spanking head coach in John Harbaugh, who has a proven history, you better give him what he needs to do what he has to do. All right. So if it means he wants to have a staff of 25 assistants, you give him that staff. And you say money is not an object. I mean, look, Forbes ranked the New York Giants organization as the 5th most valuable. I think it was the 5th, or definitely within the top 5 most valuable sports franchises in the world. So don't skimp on the money. When you have a value of estimated 10.1 billion, you've got the money to hire the best talent possible. You start skimping, you get what you pay for. All right. It was also speculated that Harbaugh needs his own personnel guy. That I don't believe to be true either. As I said in the previous segment, Joe Schoen has been laying the groundwork to get to know John Harbaugh, albeit, via the phone, and just build up a rapport. Sometimes, it's almost like a date in a way. You talk to somebody on the phone or via text or whatever, and you get to know them. And then, you get to know what triggers them, what doesn't, what resonates with them. And ultimately you build off of that and you build a relationship, you build trust. And that's what Joe has been trying to do, to say, look, we're going to be in this together. I'm here to support you with what you need if you come here. Now, does that mean Harbaugh is going to have final say over the roster, which was another condition that was reported? I don't think it does. That is not how the Giants do business. I don't see it changing, even for John Harbaugh. All right. The way it has always worked, with the exception of George Young when he was here, is that the head coach and the GM are partners in building the team. But in the event of a disagreement, the deciding vote goes to the GM. But not just, the GM because he wants it. There has to be a valid reason. There has to be an argument, if you will, or a discussion. It's not just, I have my heart set on this and this is how it's going to be. No, that's not how the Giants do it. So you've got to remember, John Harbaugh in Baltimore worked with Ozzie Newsome, Eric DaCosta. He has never had a problem being successful answering to a GM. And John Harbaugh, for those who say, oh, let him be his own GM, I'm telling you now, folks, not happening. He's going to have enough on his hands with coaching the team to where, okay, now you want him to get involved with contract negotiations and dealing with free agents and dealing with the salary cap and all that stuff and the daily transactions. No. That's not going to happen. So I don't anticipate the Giants changing their structure. Will John Harbaugh have a say? Absolutely. Brian Daboll had a say when he was here. Did Brian Daboll always get what he wanted? No. Will John Harbaugh, if he comes here, always get what he wants? Probably not. Maybe he'll get it a little bit more than maybe what Daboll did. But the point being is some of these demands that were alleged that Harbaugh wanted, I think they were blown out of proportion. And they just don't make sense at the end of the day. So that being said, what do you give to John Harbaugh and say, okay, you've got complete autonomy? You give him autonomy over his staff, over how he runs the football program from the time the offseason program opens. And remember, the Giants can open their offseason 2 weeks earlier than everybody else because they'll have a new coach. They'll have an extra mini camp as part of the rules. You just tell Harbaugh, look, you want to practice inside all the time? Great. You want to practice outside? Great. You want to go over to the stadium if it's available? Sure, no problem. You let him do what he needs to from a football, from an X's and O's perspective. The business side, that's why the Giants have a GM. That's why they have a cap manager. That's why they have scouts, so that Harbaugh doesn't have to do everything. And I would be very surprised if he comes in here and wants to do everything. He'll be kept informed, obviously, but to actually do it, don't see it happening. All right, Giant fans, that will do it for this edition of Locked On Giants. Again, I want to thank you for tuning in and spending part of your day with us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. And again, for those of you who are interested, do check out our Everydayer Club, lockedonpodcast.com/everydayer, or if you want to go directly to the New York Giants one, go to lockedonnygiants.supercast.com to see the 2 plans that we have available. And there's so many features that you can sign up for if you want to be a part of that. All right, Giant fans, I'll be back tomorrow with an all-new episode of Locked On Giants. And also, don't forget to check out the Locked On Giants YouTube channel. We just had another squad show that aired on Tuesday. Myself, Mark Collins, Jay Berman. We're going to have another episode, live 1 hour stream on Thursday, starting at 1 p.m. Eastern. So we hope you'll join us for that as well. All right. Take care, everybody.